Well, I don't know. They were playing this song on the radio, and it's my song that I wrote with him.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 533. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Cynthia McCloud Woodman. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We're here to talk about your brother Billy.
Yeah.
So, for those, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're a diehard Guns N' Roses fan, but that doesn't mean everybody knows who Billy McCloud is. If you look at your Use Your Illusion 2 liner notes for yesterday's, there are names listed, of course, for who wrote the song. Rose for Axel, James for Dell, West, Arkeen for West Arkeen, and it was just Billy. It was just Billy. Billy McCloud, your brother, helped to write yesterday's. So I wanted to, I guess, before we get into his story, more about your story, I had seen your comments around GNR social media for some time. And I feel like I've seen them and I've tried to connect, and I'm so glad this is able to happen. You wanting to thank Axel somehow for giving
Yeah.
your brother credit, songwriting credit for yesterday's, and you weren't quite sure how to do this. I mean, there's so many comments on social media all over. That's what it is. I mean, things get lost. Who knows who's going to see what? And I don't know. I want to have this conversation with you about your brother. Uh, so I guess where do we start? Are you both from? Well, your brother
Yeah, we're
sadly passed away in 2002. I should mention that, and I'm
right.
very, I'm very sorry. There is no time that passes that makes it any
Right.
less. So I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Both raised in Los Angeles. Is that where you
Uh,
are?
well, we were born in Chicago, but pretty much lived in LA for our entire lives, pretty
I
much.
wore the Cubs hat.
Oh,
Somehow I knew.
that's weird.
It is weird. My wife's from Chicago. Look at this.
Oh,
This was meant to be.
where in Chicago is she from?
Geneva.
Okay. We were born in Oak Park.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's my first few times ever going to Chicago is because of my wife. I got this at Wrigley Field.
Oh, nice.
This Cubs
Okay.
hat. Okay. So you're both originally from Chicago. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
originally, but lived here since the mid 60s. So pretty much we're, Angelinos.
Okay. Uh.
Anyway, and my brother's 2 years younger than I am.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was just, a typical childhood. He was probably like every third teenage boy. He loved music. He taught himself how to play guitar and piano. And when he was a teenager, he played in garage bands again, like I'm sure so many teenage boys and girls do. Um, and uh, we kind of had separate lives because after my parents got divorced when we were teenagers, he went and lived with my dad, and I lived with my mom, so we were about 50 miles apart. So, we would see each other weekends, holidays, and that kind of stuff. But so, he did his garage band thing, with the long hair and just the jewelry and the whole kind of 70s thing, where I was this very straight-laced, kid who was on the debate team, and we had these kind of different lives. But um, I went off to college, and then I went to cooking school in San Francisco. So, and then after that, I moved to London. Meanwhile, he's again trying to do something with his music, working part-time jobs. He didn't finish high school. He dropped out of high school. He started doing casual drugs, when he was a teenager, started with pot and went to pills and got a little more crazy. And in a, the he was just starting with a band called Prodigal Sons. And I want to say that would be 83, 84. And he started playing, in Hollywood at the clubs. Meanwhile, I'm living in San Francisco and London. And then he got Hodgkin's, which is a form of cancer, which is pretty common in young men.
Mhm.
It's real treatable. But he did have to go through cancer treatment. So that kind of put a stop on his musical, whatever was going on in his life musically. But he never stopped loving it. But this group, Prodigal Sons, was starting to take off. I came back from London in the fall of 85, and he was recovering and he was trying to get back into music. And he said, "Hey, I'm playing a gig with this band called LA Guns." You know, his band was opening Prodigal Sons for LA Guns or vice versa. I'm not really sure. Come with me to this to West Hollywood. It might have been the Whiskey. I don't know. And so I went to this rock, wild heavy metal thing. And meanwhile, I'm into like new wave, that British kind of music.
Yeah.
So I went to it and he's like, "Oh, I want you to meet my friend Axel." I don't believe Guns N' Roses had been formed yet. I think he was with the LA Guns and maybe they were just starting. I'm not sure. So I met Axel briefly, watched the show, both of them. And I went back to England, came back, I got married, did my thing, he did his thing. Meanwhile, because he had gone through cancer treatment, the group he was with, the Prodigal Sons, they're like, "Hey, man, we got to go on. We got to do our thing. And you're going through these treatments. We're going to have to, let you go." So that did kind of spiral him to some depression. It also kind of made him go, a little bit deeper into drugs. And then I would say 89, I got married in 88 and he was fine then, but 89-ish, 90, he definitely spiraled. Throughout his, teens and 20s, he had gone to jail for minor things like shooting a BB gun or I don't know. He had minor things. But then he started doing some major stuff. I don't actually know. You probably know a little more after talking to Dell. But he did some bad stuff, ended up in jail. And, my dad was like bailing him out and giving him money. I'm like, "Dad, you can't give a drug addict money. It just doesn't work like that." So finally my dad's like, "Okay, I just have to cut him off."
Hmm.
Cut him off. He went into heavy duty heroin addiction and was living on the streets of LA. Ironically, he was living in the garment district. I think he was living in like a car park or something like that. And this is kind of one of my favorite stories, I guess, if you can have a favorite story about a drug addict, homeless brother. But he didn't want to beg for money, but he needed money. So what he did was he bought himself a broom and he found a strip of, I don't know, a half a dozen stores. And he'd roll up his, stuff. And every day he'd come out there and he'd keep those 5 or 6 stores spotless. He'd sweep and he got to know them all. Well, one of them was like a sushi place, the other one was like a donut and coffee place. So, at the end of the day, they would give him sushi, a couple of bucks or whatever. And so he was able to kind of live by hook and crook
Hmm.
that way for a while. At one point, my dad's like, "We have to go find him." Because you'd hear pieces on the street like, "He's really bad into heroin, he got arrested again," or whatever it was. So I remember my dad and I driving, and my dad had a Cadillac. He's like, "We're not taking my Cadillac to Skid Row." So we
Hmm.
had to get in my little Datsun B210, and I was, looking out the window and asking everyone, "Have you seen the cigarette man? Have you seen the cigarette man?" "No." "No, yeah, I saw him yesterday." We tried that a few times. We were never able to find him. Probably in 1990-ish he called my aunt and said, "I'm done. I'm ready. I need to get off the streets." So my aunt made a couple phone calls, found out that Union Station in Pasadena, which is a rehabilitation in place, they would take him, but he had to be clean and sober for like 24, 48 hours. So I remember my aunt brought him to her apartment. He's still high as a kite, and she just literally had to stay up, like for 24 hours just to make sure
Huh.
that he was gonna stay that way. He enrolled in Union Station. He went through the 3-month program, went through the 12-step. He got his life together, um, and was trying to, kind of get going. He was worked for a furniture store and a construction company, so some menial jobs. Uh, Fall of 91, I'll never forget it because it was a Monday, and he called me on a Monday. He goes, "Hey, remember I told you I used to hang out with Axl Rose and I used to play with them and we'd write songs and stuff together?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I don't know. They were playing this song on the radio and it's my song that I wrote with him." Now, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, it's my song yesterday's. I wrote it with Axl like in the mid 80s. And I go, okay. And he said, I actually called up the DJ when the song was finished playing. And I said, can you tell me who wrote that song? And he said, exactly what you said. And he said, but the thing is, he only listed my first name.
Hmm.
I go, oh my God, he probably couldn't remember your last name. And he said, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? That's my song. And I said, hey, hang on. Well, it just so happens I had a friend who was a band manager, music manager. I called him up and I said, hey, do you remember I used to tell you, I told you that my brother used to play in a band? He goes, yeah, everybody's brother used to play in a band. And I go, well, do you remember I told you he used to play, with Axl Rose? He goes, yeah, everybody's brother used to play with Axl Rose. And I go, okay, well, uh, apparently there's, they have that, and now the buzz for that album was massive at the time. You wouldn't remember, but it was massive.
Right.
Like there was so much buzz, which is why they were playing the songs to hype everyone up, because the following week is when the album was going to come out. So this is a Monday. The following week, Monday at midnight, people were going to start lining up
Hmm.
because the album came out on a Tuesday. And so I said, well, apparently my brother wrote one of the songs that's on the album. He goes, yeah, all right, sure. I said, well, I mean, whatever. He says, Laura, let me make a couple calls. Calls me back 10 minutes later. He goes, are you sure that the Billy that's on that album is your brother? And I'm thinking to myself, well, he's a drug addict and he was a lot, he lied a lot. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure because I met Axl Rose one time with him, and he goes, "You have your brother call me right now, like right now." So that's where the long story gets short. From that point, he called my brother. 6 weeks later, they handed my brother $100,000 check and 29% of the royalties for the future.
Awesome.
The part that I like to say is my brother was 1 year clean and sober. He was trying to get his life, on the ground again, off the ground. And he's handed this $100,000 check. Now, he didn't have anything, nothing. He was living in one of my dad's rental properties, a little house, just, working menial jobs. Axl Rose did not, I'm sure, what was the conversation? I wrote that song with Billy, but what the hell was his last name? Well, that's
Right.
okay. We'll just put his first name on there. And if all they had to do was say, who? Like my brother didn't have any money to sue. He could have told that story in a bar and everyone would have been like, oh, yeah, sure. But the fact that Axl Rose couldn't remember his name but put his first name on, they could have they could have fought any kind of lawsuit with just, coffee change.
Hmm.
And my brother would have been screwed. So the integrity it's just mind-blowing to me. It's just crazy that I mean, how many musicians like that would do something like that?
Not many. Not many. And not in especially today's world where we're eking out and squeezing everybody for a buck. And you see all these lawsuits about plagiarism that happens all the time now. And that could have easily happened. All that's what I really loved about when I've seen your comments throughout the years and finally able to connect with you because this is a great story because all the negativity about Axel, this just goes to show you who he is. And it didn't, I'm sure it didn't really need to like, oh, look what I'm doing to help this person. It wasn't
No, it
any
never
sort of,
did.
it was just
Never.
it just did it.
Yeah.
Uh, was there any sort of conversation after? Or is it just like, was that the last that Billy had, your brother had to do with Guns N' Roses was getting that money in royalties? Was there any sort of like, oh, Billy, let's now I know his last name. Let's reach it. None of that then.
No, no, because I was like, when the time came, I mean, I'm sure my brother had to sign papers and go in and do this and that, and I'm sure he had to prove who he was, and I'm sure Axel had to like eyeball the whole thing and go, yeah, that's the same guy, because I mean, I guess anybody called Billy could do it.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know what kind of machinations went on behind the scenes, but I said, did you meet Axel? He's like, no, it was the managers doing their whatever managers do.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, at that time. I mean, Axel was like surrounded by managers and people, so it's very hard to get at him. So I don't that part doesn't surprise me. But I
Yeah.
mean, the great part again is they could have just paid him off, but then there's that royalties thing that
Well, how
Steve.
about they didn't even need to pay him off because so what? Your
Well,
name.
right after we established
He
they didn't
didn't
need to
even
do
have
any
to
of
put.
this,
He didn't even have to put my brother's name on there.
all of it was generous. It was
Oh,
like they didn't have to do. Did Billy ever tell you what he contributed to the song? I didn't get that from
well,
my
he
conversation with
says
Bill.
he wrote most of it, which he probably did. But I mean, I'm not. No, 29% is well, and so that's the thing. They gave him 100,000 up front on future royalties because the album hadn't come out yet. They were just banking on it was gonna now, but here, if you start doing the math on that, he got 29% of one song.
Right.
Like, do the math on that. It's crazy. And subsequent years, he'd get 50, and if they were going on tour, it'd be a little more money. And so for several years, it was 30 and 40, and then when they were off tour, it'd go down to 20 or whatever. Um, and then so he managed to stay clean and sober. He followed a girlfriend to Lincoln, Nebraska. And while he went in for he had a um, heart murmur, which he probably got when he was a kid, an
Hmm.
undiagnosed heart murmur. He went in for some routine surgery on the heart murmur, and he had a mild stroke. And after that, his personality kind of went down a little bit. Before that, he was the kind of guy who would walk into a room and he just would light up the room. Like he didn't even have to say anything. He just had this really big personality. And you read the article, I mean, he's a little cocky too. I've forgotten more about Guns N' Roses than you'll ever know. He was a little he was very self-assured, but he would walk into a room and he'd just kind of light up the room. But after he had that stroke, he was sort of a little bit slower and he didn't quite have that big bubbly personality. But he did have two sleeves of tattoos. And I wish I had taken, you don't think about that, taking pictures because we didn't have phones back then.
Hmm.
But he had Dirty Little Girl and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and he had all sleeves of Elton John
Oh wow.
songs from the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road album on his.
I mean, I'm sure that's where him and Axel connected because he's an Elton guy. Even on
I
You
didn't
Could
know
Be
that.
oh, on You Could Be Mine. I mean, I learned this recently. I while I'm always been a fan of the band, my knowledge has obviously increased just from doing this podcast. This was something that bypassed me for many years, but that's not the line of I think we've seen that movie too
Oh,
is from
yep.
Elton and
Okay.
Bernie Taupin. So and they're credited also. So Axel, it's funny. I mean, it's great. He credits people who really didn't contribute to the song, but just were an inspiration to it. But obviously with your brother writing it, it's just it goes I love that because I feel like this I'm the same way. I want to credit all the people who helped make this happen. It's never just all about me. If I have a friend help me set up a guest or ask a good question, they did it. They did it, not me. I just happen to be the face of it, I guess now. So that's one of the reasons why I've always liked Axel because he always seemed that way. So just to hear that, and again, it's so funny just to see Billy. It wasn't even like a unique name that like, oh, here's Mortimer, and you have to go to a certain Mortimer, like a bunch of Mortimers, but it's just Billy. It could be anybody. So it's brilliant. But I'm so how when what was the reason? I mean, I don't know if
Oh,
it's
so
interpret
so
like
then
why he
yeah,
passed.
so he had a stroke. He was fine after that, but he stayed in Lincoln with again his girlfriend, and then he went in, and who knows if his health was already compromised from all the years that he was a drug addict. I don't know, but he went in 2002 because he had an ulcer, and they were going to repair an ulcer, and they nicked his bowel. And he ended up getting sepsis, and he was in the hospital for 8 weeks while he was dying. They were trying to figure out, and it was a nicked bowel.
So that's hospitals, man. That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. How old
And
was he? How old was he
he
when
was 40.
Oh,
at
no,
40.
I feel it. Oh no, I feel it. I have
Yeah.
an ulcer. I'm
But
not going to the hospital.
he would always, my mom would always say, well, he kind of always had a sense that he wasn't going to live a long old life. He always would joke and say, live fast, die, fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse. I mean, that was
Yeah.
kind of his like thing. So, I mean, it's sad for me. Um, I wish that he could have known my daughters. My older one was 7 when he died. My younger one was not even 2. We were there in Lincoln, when he was in the hospital. But the ironic thing is that my younger daughter, um, started they started a garage band when they were with 3 other kids, 13, and they went on to win their junior high garage band for 3 years in a row. They've done Yesterdays a few times, and some good friends of ours who are musicians are like, ah, I wish you guys could record that song again, but the kids are all, my youngest daughter's she's going to be 25, they're doing their thing. 2 of them are professional musicians now. And my older daughter, who can also sing, was in musical theater. So they got some of his genes, which I think he would have been really thrilled. But
Oh
he
yeah.
he left the money after he died, because he never got married, had no children. He left my daughters in his will. So they received the trust money yearly, and what his wish was that it was spent on education.
Mm.
So we would use it for piano lessons or, private school or whatever. So that money that they get, 2 or 3 times a year goes to their student loans and, education, which is kind of nice that
I,
he,
to think that the song Yesterdays is helping in some indirect way or direct way, I guess, helping keeping the music alive. And the fact that your daughters are covering Yesterday. I mean, this is just, I mean, this is a bit, I know there's obviously a very sad part of it, but there is a beautiful part of it, thankfully, to at least come out of it and make something from it. And, as an older brother, um, I've had, I mean, I've had my issues. My younger brothers have had their issues. Uh, I mean, it is something very hard to deal with when you're going through it. And I'm just so because you want to be able to communicate and help. And but if you're until you're ready, whether I know that I wasn't ready until I was ready. It didn't matter what people said, or certain friends or certain relatives. There's only so much you can say, and you try, and you those difficult decisions, you cut them off. I mean, you feel but when you're out of options, I mean, there's so awful things. But just to hear that towards the end, he had righted the ship.
yep. So he had
The
10 years.
stroke. I mean, the stroke is. I mean, that's just something you can't help. But this riding this riding the ship and getting his life. And I think that's just and I think it's wonderful. And you were obviously a really wonderful sister to him. So thank you for that, if I can say.
Thank you. No,
Uh,
it's just I think just if anytime somebody says anything negative about Axel, I'm like, no, I've got a story for you.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's something I really do try to collect here in the podcast. I know occasionally I get the negative story, usually from Mr. Alan Niven, but he was their first the Geffen manager he's away with words. But I get a lot of positive stories here because it bothers me because I hear the real stories.
Yeah.
And when it's your favorite band and people are just saying things that aren't true or all the rumors, and then I hear something like this, someone so real, a story that's not heard or shared, I just really appreciate you taking the time to share it. And it makes me like the band. As lame as this might sound, it makes me like the band more. It makes me like Axel more. Because that's the kind of person that you still hear that he is today, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So that's just wonderful. That's
I have
consistent.
his platinum album here.
Oh, you do? Ooh, look at that. Beautiful. Geffen silver record. Does it say anything on the
It's a,
bottom?
it's a platinum.
Oh,
Uh,
well, look, I'm sorry, it looks silver to
yeah.
me. I don't know my colors yet. My 2-year-old knows his colors better than I do.
Well, I don't have my cheaters on, but it's yeah, it's got the song listed there.
Oh, beautiful.
So he
Very
was really
cool.
that.
Did you take that down off the wall here
I
for
did,
me?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that because I was like, you better hang that up somewhere, but it looks like it
No,
already
I
was
took it off
hung
the
up.
wall.
Well, thank you. Before we go, can you just let me know about what is it? She loves to eat. She likes to eat.
What
What
a
a
girl.
girl eats. I know I was being silly. What a girl eats.
Yeah,
.com and how did that start? I mean, I think that's pretty cool. You have a great following on Instagram and Facebook. So I mean,
thanks.
it's I was like when I thought it was just gonna be some rant. I mean, we're all somebody, we're all important. But I was like, oh wow, she has a following. I thought it was just gonna be someone's sister, and I'm like, maybe she has something to promote. Who knows? But you do. So can you tell us about it and how long you've been doing it?
Well, I went to cooking school, classical French, and then in San Francisco after that, I moved to London and, kicked around London for a while. But, the cooking professionally, it's a rough gig because it's Friday night, Saturday, Mother's Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to work those hours. So I kind of put that on the back burner. Uh, I was married. I wanted to have kids. So I became a teacher. And I was a teacher for 30 years, so I had weekends and holidays and reasonable hours, and I could be with my kids. But, about 14 years ago, I was like, gosh, all I ever do is either talk about food, talk about the last meal I had, the future meal I'm going to have, or, friends of mine are like, I don't understand how you can come home from school every day and then still have like a meal on the table. I'm like, it's not that hard. I can put a meal on the table in 30 minutes. It's just not that. Oh, I said, well, I'll put some stuff up on a little blog spot and you can see how fast and easy things are. And then it just kind of grew. And then, I wasn't ever planning on making money. I sort of did it as a hobby and I retired about 3 years ago, and now it's my full-time job.
That's
And I'm
awesome.
and I'm going next week to Italy. This will be my fourth year in a row judging the Tiramisu World Cup in Treviso.
Wow, what a cool life. That's so cool. I mean, good for you. I mean, again, we're here talking about your brother. I know there's some sad stuff. Dell. Well, again, I pre-recorded the episode, which is coming out probably November 3rd. I'm gonna put it out because it's the day before his graphic novel comes out, so it's gonna coincide with that. And he was like, "This is a very dark period in my life when he was roommates with your brother." So there's obviously a dark side of this conversation, and I appreciate you
Did
sharing
I
it.
did I get dark? Was that the
No,
dark you were looking for?
no, that's I don't want to like
I mean,
oversell it. It was like,
I do know some darker parts, but it probably isn't safe for everybody's ears. Yeah.
well, it's whether it's even necessary because I've shared
Yeah.
my journey. I'm 9 years without alcohol. I lost my father to depression. I mean, these are conversations that happen around Guns N' Roses, believe it or not. But I always look for that silver lining because we need it in life. And the fact that I don't know, hearing the story about your daughters, what you're doing with your life now, this is so cool, what you're doing. And so it's just, there's the bad, there's the tough times, but you really shown that there's still a life out there to live. And, you're an inspiration. And I really appreciate you sharing your story and, of course, your brother's story with us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it. And for whatever reason, if you remember a silly story about your brother or something Axel related, you're always welcome back.
Okay.
Or a good recipe. You know,
Okay. See.
I
So
said
what do you
this.
cook at home? Oh, did your wife do the cooking?
My wife cooks. I'm very grateful that she does. My brother was just making fun of me because again, my wife and my son had to go. I was supposed to go with them, but I to Texas this weekend, but I couldn't because of work. And he joked with me, he's like, how do you feed yourself? I'm like, I can feed myself. I was single for a long time, but she cooks like salmon and pasta and lots of chicken. But again, I've had to really change my diet because all of a sudden I became lacto. I mean, I know it's not all of a sudden, but my wedding was all pizza and cookies. That's the way we did it. And now I can't eat pizza that's made with cheese. I can't. I've had to
You
completely.
went to Italy, you'd be able to.
Yeah, if I went to another country that wasn't America, that I feel like all the food is poisoned,
Yeah.
I think I might have a better. I mean, it's whatever. I've accidentally cut the bad things out of my life. I lived off McDonald's and somehow. So I mean, if I eat it now, I will see.
You
I will
paid
be
the price.
knocking. I will be knocking on heaven's door to tie everything together. So I will. What a girl eats. Just thank you so much, Cynthia, for your
Thank
time,
you.
and I hope we to get to do this again. So
Thank you.
that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When we see the next one, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.